The mysterious arrival, hook and suspense. It was a quiet day on Earth, the kind where nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the cities below, and the usual hum of human activity filled the air. But all of that was about to change. Suddenly, without warning, a massive fleet appeared in the sky. It wasn't like any spacecraft humans had seen before. The ships were huge, sleek, and far beyond any technology that humanity could comprehend. They didn't move like normal ships. They glided silently, hovering in perfect formation, as if they were waiting for something. There was no communication, no signs of intent, just the eerie silence of these unknown vessels blocking out the sky. People stared up, frozen in disbelief, unsure of what to think. Was this a first contact? A new kind of alien invasion? The world held its breath. Governments scrambled to respond. Military forces mobilized, and experts rushed to analyze the ships. The aliens didn't speak. No messages came through the communication channels, and no signals were sent. All that could be heard were the distant rumblings of the cities below and the uneasy murmur of the people. Then, after what felt like hours, the silence broke, but not in the way anyone expected. The alien ships began to move again, but instead of attacking or making demands, they left. They didn't leave Earth. Instead, they moved into the depths of space, disappearing beyond the horizon, leaving nothing behind but a strange feeling of unease in the air. But as the world watched in confusion, one thing became clear: something had been left behind. There, in the middle of an open plain, sat a giant metal structure. It was an alien starship, but it was unlike any other. The ship was in terrible shape, ripped open in places, scorched black by cosmic radiation, and covered in dents and scratches. It looked like it had been abandoned for years, maybe even decades. The technology was advanced, certainly, but the ship seemed broken, as if it had been discarded, left for dead. At first, no one knew what to make of it. Some thought it was a gift. After all, the aliens had given it to them, right? But why such a damaged and useless piece of technology? What was its purpose? Could it be a trap? As Earth's governments scrambled to send teams of scientists and engineers to investigate, one question stood out. Why had the aliens done this? What was the real reason behind this mysterious gift? The world's top minds were soon gathered around the wreckage, trying to understand what the aliens had left behind. The damage was far worse than they had expected. It wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was as if the ship had been deliberately decommissioned, its systems intentionally fried. The ship was practically a junkyard in space, yet somehow the humans couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just debris. It didn't make sense. For weeks, the investigation teams worked tirelessly, attempting to decode the alien language etched into the ship's hull, trying to make sense of the strange power sources that hummed quietly beneath the surface. But no matter how much they studied, no one could figure out the ship's purpose. It wasn't just a failed ship. It was a mystery waiting to be unlocked. Then, as the weeks passed, something strange started happening. The damaged starship began to show signs of life. A faint glow flickered within the ship's core, where no power had been for so long. Slowly, one by one, the systems started to come back online. Systems that should have been completely beyond repair. It was as if the ship was waking up. Humanity was on the edge of discovering something massive, something that could change the course of history. But no one knew what they were dealing with. Was the ship just a tool, a weapon, or something far more dangerous? The more the scientists examined it, the more they realized that there was far more to this than they could have ever imagined. As they dug deeper into the ship's heart, a chilling thought began to take hold of the team. Could this be a test? A test from the alien race that had disappeared into the unknown? Had they given humanity this broken starship not as a gift, but as a challenge? Suspense grew as the teams worked around the clock, trying to make sense of the clues the ship was leaving behind. But with each passing day, the mystery deepened. Was this a sign of things to come, or was it the beginning of something far more terrifying? The world waited, breathless and uncertain. Would humanity be able to unlock the secrets of the ship and use it for their benefit, or had the aliens left behind something that would be the end of them all? No one knew, but one thing was clear: this was just the beginning. The real questions were only beginning to surface, and the answers could change everything. The first attempt. The world's best engineers and scientists gathered around the broken starship, desperate to make sense of the alien technology. Governments and military forces had set up tight security around the wreckage. They were all cautious, knowing that something this mysterious could either bring humanity to new heights or lead to its destruction. The first impression was that the ship was beyond repair, a useless hunk of metal that couldn't possibly have any value. Despite the damage, one thing was clear: it was full of alien technology that far surpassed anything humans had seen before. The starship was embedded with strange circuits, glowing symbols, and intricate designs that no one could even begin to understand. It seemed to be a treasure trove of knowledge, but it was locked in a decaying, broken vessel. Some of the best minds on Earth worked tirelessly, but they couldn't unlock its secrets. Every attempt seemed to fail. The ship didn't want to reveal itself, like it was guarding its power with all its might. Weeks passed, and frustration began to set in. The ship's systems were so advanced that every solution seemed to lead to another roadblock. No one could figure out what powered it. The fuel cells seemed empty, the control systems malfunctioned, and the weapons systems appeared to be destroyed. At times, it seemed like the ship was laughing at humanity's attempts to control it. It was as though it had a mind of its own, one that humans could never hope to understand. Then came a breakthrough. Dr. Maria Kendall, a brilliant astrophysicist, noticed something unusual in the ship's core. There was a faint energy pulse coming from a sealed chamber deep within the ship's belly. It was the only part of the ship that hadn't been completely damaged, and something inside it was still alive, just barely. It wasn't much, but it was enough to spark new hope. Maria's team worked day and night, focusing on the core. They discovered that the ship's energy systems were far more complex than anything they had anticipated. It wasn't just using standard fuel. It was tapping into a quantum energy source that humans had only theorized about. The more they investigated, the more they realized that the Starship wasn't just a vehicle. It was a work of art, a masterpiece of alien engineering. But there was a problem. The more they attempted to activate the core, the more unstable it became. The energy fluctuations began to ripple through the ship's systems, causing parts of the hull to shake and groan. It was as though the Starship was warning them, like it didn't want to be tampered with. But even as the risk increased, the humans pressed on, determined to understand it. One night, during a routine test, something unexpected happened. As Maria and her team powered up the core one last time, a surge of light shot out from the ship. It wasn't a typical power-up. It was a burst of energy so intense it nearly blinded everyone present. The lights flickered, alarms blared, and the ground seemed to shake underfoot. For a moment, no one knew what had happened. Had they unlocked the ship's full potential, or had they caused a catastrophic failure? The scientists rushed to check the readings, and when the dust cleared, they couldn't believe their eyes. The Starship was alive, truly alive in a way that no one could have predicted. The core's energy levels had stabilized, and the ship's control systems had come online, though they were glitching. The ship's once dormant weapons systems hummed to life. It wasn't ready yet, but it was far more advanced than anyone had dared to imagine. The Starship had a strange power now, one that seemed to pulse with an unnatural force. But they hadn't fully unlocked its secrets yet. There was still so much they didn't understand. What exactly was this ship? Was it a weapon, or was it just a tool? And if it was a weapon, who had designed it, and why? These questions gnawed everyone involved. But what had been a broken, abandoned ship was now a weapon in waiting, a weapon that had been left behind by the aliens for reasons no one could explain. Then, just as the team started to celebrate their success, the Starship did something even more unexpected. A series of alien symbols flashed on the control panel, and a single word appeared in English, scrawled in jagged, glowing letters. Activate. The word sent a chill through everyone in the room. Was it an invitation? A command? What did it mean? There was no turning back now. The team had unlocked something far greater than they ever could have imagined. And with the alien message now clear, one question loomed larger than ever. What did the aliens want from them? Was this all part of a bigger plan, or had they made a terrible mistake? Suspense gripped the room as everyone realized they had no choice but to find out. The next steps would determine the fate of humanity, and no one could predict where this journey would lead. The breakthrough. The room buzzed with tension as the alien message, activate, blinked on the control panel. Dr. Maria Kendall and her team stood frozen for a moment, their minds racing. They had done it. They had brought the Starship to life. But now, the ship was asking for something more, something that none of them were prepared for. Could they trust it? Could they even understand it? The initial excitement turned to nervous excitement. The team, composed of the best engineers, scientists, and military strategists, stood at the threshold of unlocking the Starship's true purpose, yet none of them knew if they were ready for what lay ahead. The Starship was more than just a ship. It was a piece of alien technology beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. Its secrets seemed to taunt them, just out of reach. Despite the uncertainty, they had no choice but to proceed. Maria, ever the determined leader, stepped forward, her heart racing. She issued orders to her team to check all systems. Every readout, every control panel was scrutinized. There was no room for error. Then something extraordinary happened. A single console powered up with a brilliant flash of light, displaying detailed schematics of the Starship's core, schematics that no human had ever seen before. These were designs that could only be described as alien, but they were laid out in a way that humans could understand, as though the ship itself was offering them a guide to unlocking its full potential. "What is this?" One of the engineers, Dan, whispered in disbelief. "It's like the ship is teaching us." Maria's fingers hovered over the console, hesitant but resolute. The instructions were clear, and the team began to follow the steps. As they did, the ship responded, its energy core pulsing with increasing power. Slowly, piece by piece, the ship's various systems came back online. But this time, it was different. The ship wasn't simply functioning, it was evolving. The ship was alive, almost sentient. The more they worked with it, the more they realized just how advanced this technology was. The weapons systems, previously thought to be destroyed, began to hum with deadly energy. The Starship's engines sparked to life, causing the entire hull to glow with an otherworldly light. And yet, there was still one part of the ship that hadn't responded, the central command module. Maria knew that this was the key. If they could unlock the command module, they would understand what the ship truly was, and perhaps what the aliens had intended for humanity. The module had been sealed off, with a complex series of alien locks that no human had been able to decode. But the ship was offering them the code, step by step, like a puzzle meant to be solved. The team worked in tandem, carefully following each step. The ship's glow grew brighter with each successful entry. It was as if the Starship itself was becoming more powerful with every passing moment, responding to their efforts. And then, it happened. With a final, resounding click, the command module unlocked, revealing a holographic map of the galaxy. The map pulsed with a soft, eerie light, showing star systems far beyond humanity's reach. It was a map that detailed not just the known galaxy, but others, systems where humans had never even dreamed of traveling. But this wasn't just a map of stars. It was a map of war, a map of conflict. The holographic display zoomed in on a series of locations, each marked with a red symbol, each one a point of interest. And in the center of it all was Earth, surrounded by a web of war and destruction. This was no simple starship. The ship wasn't a gift. It was a weapon of unimaginable power. The aliens had designed it to protect humanity, but it was also a tool of war, one that could either save them or destroy them. Maria stared at the map, her heart pounding. This was the truth. The aliens had left behind the starship, not as a mere piece of advanced technology, but as a key to a larger cosmic conflict. The galaxy was at war, and humanity was about to be thrust into the center of it all. The ship's systems hummed louder now, as if responding to Maria's realization. It wasn't just a ship, it was a weapon, and humanity had the power to wield it. But as the team watched the holographic map shift, showing enemy fleets closing in on Earth, another chilling thought struck. The ship wasn't just a tool to defend Earth, it was a weapon that could be used for much more. Could humanity control such power? Could they wield it wisely? Or would they be consumed by it? As the stars on the map began to blink in rapid succession, it was clear that the clock was ticking. The ship's energy level surged again, indicating that it was ready for action. Humanity had unlocked something truly extraordinary, but the question remained, what would they do with it? The universe was watching, and the fate of humanity was now tied to the power of this broken starship. Would they use it to defend themselves, or would they fall victim to the very weapon they had unleashed? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain, the game had changed, and humanity was now playing for keeps. The race against time. The discovery of the starship's true purpose sent shockwaves through the world. Earth had unknowingly become a target in a galactic war, and the weapon they had just unlocked was the key to their survival or their destruction. But the realization came with urgency. The alien fleets closing in on Earth were not just looking for the starship, they were coming for humanity itself. The military had already been mobilized, but the humans weren't prepared for the type of warfare they were about to face. The starship, though fully functional, was still in its early stages. It was a powerful weapon, but it was far from stable. The energy systems were fluctuating wildly, and the weapon systems, though potent, were untested. There was no time to waste in perfecting the ship's capabilities. They had to act now. Maria Kendall, along with her team of scientists and military leaders, worked around the clock to get the starship ready for combat. Each day brought new challenges, as the ship's technology seemed to change with every new activation. Its systems responded to them, but at times they seemed unpredictable, as if the ship itself was testing them, pushing them to see if they could truly harness its power. In the meantime, the enemy fleets grew closer. Satellites in orbit had detected multiple alien ships heading towards Earth. They were massive, built for war, and they moved in coordinated formations. The most terrifying part, these alien forces weren't coming to negotiate. They were coming to destroy. Humanity's response was frantic. Governments around the world were coordinating to launch their best defense systems, but nothing could match the alien fleets. Conventional weapons stood no chance. The only hope now lay in the starship that had once been written off as junk. The stakes couldn't be higher. With each passing hour, the tension mounted. The military had brought in their best pilots, preparing them for the worst. The idea was simple: hit the starship into orbit, activate its weapons, and strike first. But there were no guarantees. The starship was new, untested, and still had flaws. No one knew how well it would perform in real combat, especially against such a powerful enemy. Maria was in constant communication with the military command center. They needed her expertise to help guide the activation of the starship's systems. She was the one who had unlocked the ship's core, and now she was tasked with making sure it could perform as humanity's last hope. "We need to launch within the next 2 hours," the military commander said, his voice tight with anxiety. "The enemy fleet will be in range soon, and we need to strike before they can get any closer." Maria nodded. She had no choice but to trust in the starship's power. There was no time for second-guessing. The data was clear. The ship's weapons could level entire fleets, but it hadn't been tested yet. There were too many unknowns, but what else could they do? The only other option was to sit back and let the alien forces attack without a fight. As the countdown to launch began, every minute felt like an eternity. Maria stood with her team in front of the control panel, overseeing the final preparations. The Starship, now hovering above the Earth, was a beacon of humanity's last chance. It glowed brightly, its engines humming softly as the systems came online. The ship's power was enormous, and the more they tapped into it, the more they realized it was almost alive. The question remained, could they control it long enough to make a difference? Then, just as the military gave the order to launch, something unexpected happened. A transmission was intercepted. It was a message from the alien fleet, an ultimatum. Earth will surrender. Your power is meaningless against the forces of the galaxy. Surrender or face annihilation. The message was chilling, but it was also a warning. The enemy wasn't just coming to conquer. They were sending a message that Earth had no place in their universe. Humanity was standing on the precipice, and the decision made in the next few moments would decide their future. Maria exchanged a look with her team. There was no turning back now. Launch the ship, she commanded, her voice steady despite the pressure. We don't have a choice. The Starship's engines roared to life as it ascended into the sky, leaving Earth's atmosphere behind. It was a breathtaking sight, a gleaming symbol of human determination cutting through the stars. But as the Starship reached the edge of space, it became clear that it was more than just a ship. It was humanity's weapon of defiance. As the alien fleets closed in, the Starship's weapons systems came online. The faint glow of the energy core intensified, and the ship's weapon systems hummed to life. The next few moments would determine everything. Maria watched from the command center, her heart pounding as the alien ships drew closer. The Starship was ready, but would it be enough? The first wave of alien ships entered firing range, and Maria held her breath. The ship's targeting systems locked on. Fire, she whispered. A powerful beam of energy erupted from the Starship, slicing through the darkness. It hit the first enemy ship with incredible force, obliterating it in an instant. The remaining alien ships scattered, trying to evade the attack. But they were no match for the Starship's newfound power. Humanity had struck first. The battle had begun, and there was no turning back. The alien fleet was about to feel the full wrath of the weapon they had so carelessly left behind. As the war in space unfolded, humanity's fight for survival had only just begun. But for the first time in centuries, Earth had hope. They had a weapon unlike any other, and they were ready to use it. The turning point. The battle had erupted into chaos. The Starship, now humanity's last hope, was in full swing, its weapons firing with deadly precision. The energy beams tore through the alien fleet, disintegrating ship after ship, sending a clear message that humanity wasn't going down without a fight. Yet, despite the ship's immense power, it was clear that Earth was facing an overwhelming force. The alien fleets were vast, and while the Starship was a formidable weapon, it was still just one ship against an entire armada. Maria Kendall stood at the command center, watching the screens with wide eyes. The battle had taken a turn she hadn't anticipated. The Starship's weapon systems were far more powerful than they could have ever imagined, but they were also more unstable. Each shot that tore through an enemy vessel caused the ship's core to flare with uncontrollable energy, sending shockwaves through its systems. It was becoming harder and harder to control. The enemy ships were relentless. They regrouped quickly after each wave, adapting to the Starship's attacks. Their technology wasn't as advanced as the ships, but they had sheer numbers and were willing to sacrifice their fleets to wear down humanity's only hope. The tension in the command center grew. Every second felt like an eternity as Maria and her team tried to keep the Starship functioning. Every command they issued seemed to come with a price. The ship was powerful, but the more they used it, the more they feared it might collapse under the strain. Energy levels are critical, one of the engineers called out. If we keep firing like this, The core could go critical. We don't know what will happen if that happens. Maria felt a chill run down her spine. If the Starship's core overloaded, it could not only destroy the enemy fleet, but also take Earth with it. The ship was a double-edged sword, and the decision now was whether to continue pushing its limits or risk losing everything. Just as the team was starting to lose hope, a new signal came through. An encrypted message from the Starship itself. It wasn't a typical communication. It was a directive, a command that seemed to come directly from the ship's sentient consciousness. The message was clear: recalibrate the core, redirect power to shield systems. The ship itself was instructing them on how to stabilize its power and prevent a meltdown. It wasn't just a machine. It was alive, it was learning, and it was trying to help humanity survive. Maria, one of the engineers, said urgently, "This is it. We can use the energy flow to create a powerful defense shield, something that'll give us time to recalibrate and launch a final strike. But we need to act fast." Maria didn't hesitate. She nodded, and the team sprang into action, recalibrating the Starship's core to redirect the massive energy surge into a defensive shield. The ship's entire structure groaned under the strain, but it held firm. The shield activated, sending a massive pulse of energy outward. It wasn't just a barrier. It was an explosion of force, powerful enough to knock back the approaching enemy ships. For a moment, the alien fleet hesitated. The shield held strong, and the Starship, now protected, had time to reset its weapons systems. It was the break they had been waiting for. The Starship's core, stabilized and recalibrated, was now ready for one final assault. Maria knew this was their chance. This was their turning point. If they could land a decisive blow, they could end the battle and drive the alien forces back. But this would be their final attempt. The ship's core wasn't going to survive another long engagement. "Activate all weapons," Maria ordered, her voice filled with determination. "This is our last shot. We end this now." The Starship's engines roared to life, and its weapons, now fully powered and aimed, locked onto the enemy fleet. The ship's energy core hummed loudly, and for a brief moment, everything was still. The universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, the first of the Starship's weapons unleashed its devastating force. A beam of energy, brighter than 1,000 suns, shot out from the ship, ripping through the alien fleet. One ship, then two, then a dozen. Each enemy vessel was obliterated in an instant, reduced to nothing but space debris. The shockwave of the weapon's power shook the fabric of space itself, causing nearby ships to lose control and veer off course. The tide of battle shifted. With every shot, the enemy fleet was thinned out. The aliens had underestimated humanity's resilience, and now they were paying the price. The Starship, fueled by humanity's desperation and the alien intelligence within it, was unstoppable. No force in the galaxy could withstand the full force of its weapons. But as the last of the alien ships were destroyed, Maria couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. The Starship had turned the tide, but at what cost? They had used the full extent of its power, and it was clear that the ship wasn't designed for sustained combat. The energy core was beginning to fluctuate once again, and the systems were rapidly overheating. "Maria," one of the engineers shouted, "the core is going critical again. We have minutes, maybe seconds." It was a race against time. The victory had come at a steep price, and the Starship was on the verge of self-destruction. They had won the battle, but could they survive the aftermath? As the Starship's core began to pulse with a deadly light, Maria gave the order to retreat. The ship had done its job, but now it was up to humanity to figure out how to control this power and survive in the wake of the alien war. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. And for the first time in history, humanity had a weapon that could change the galaxy forever. The real question was, what would they do with it? The final test. The victory was hard-won, but as Maria and her team watched the alien fleet crumble, the sense of triumph quickly turned into dread. The Starship had held strong in battle, but now, as the last of the enemy ships fell, it was clear that its time was running out. The Starship's core, though it had powered through the final strike, was starting to show signs of total collapse. The ship had been pushed to its limits, and now, it seemed, it was asking for a price that humanity might not be able to afford. Maria stood in front of the control panel, watching the fluctuating energy levels. The ship's systems were failing rapidly, and the core was beginning to heat up again. The massive weapon that had saved Earth now threatened to destroy it, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. "We can't let this ship fall apart," Maria said, her voice heavy with urgency. "We don't have a choice. The alien fleets will return, and we'll be defenseless without it." One of the engineers, Dan, looked up from his station, sweat trickling down his face. "Maria, it's not just the core. The energy conduits are breaking down. If we don't stabilize the systems, we'll lose the ship entirely, and Earth along with it. There's only one option left." The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation sinking in. They had come so far, only to realize that the ship, humanity's greatest weapon, couldn't last. If they didn't find a way to stabilize the core, the entire Starship would explode, taking everything with it. "I don't care what it takes," Maria said, her voice resolute. "We'll fix it. We have to fix it." But the reality was brutal. The Starship had been designed with such advanced technology that even the most brilliant minds on Earth struggled to understand its inner workings. The ship was a living thing, and trying to tame it was like trying to harness the power of the stars themselves. The ship's sentience, which had guided them to victory, was now an unknown factor. Could they truly control it? Just as the tension in the command center reached a breaking point, a new message came through. It wasn't from the alien fleet. It wasn't even from Earth's military command. This message was different. It was from the Starship itself. The message flickered across the screen, a single word displayed in bold, glowing letters. Final. It was as if the ship was acknowledging its own end. The final test was upon them. Humanity had unlocked the Starship's power, but now they had to prove they could control it. Maria's heart raced. "Is this the ship telling us it's over?" she asked. "Is it signaling its own end?" But then, the Starship's systems flickered to life one last time. The glow from its core intensified, and the energy levels spiked. For a brief moment, the ship seemed to hum with anticipation, like it was ready for one final act. "We have a choice," Maria said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. "Either we risk everything and use the last of the Starship's power to create a final shield, a shield strong enough to defend Earth for good, or we let it go and hope we can build something in time." The room was filled with silence. The team exchanged glances, knowing that this decision would change everything. If they activated the Starship's remaining power, it could protect Earth from future threats, but it could also destroy the ship beyond repair. There was no turning back. Maria turned to her team, each of them looking exhausted but determined. "We don't get second chances. We push forward." The final test wasn't just about the ship's energy or the technology. It was about humanity proving it could take control of its fate. The Starship had shown them its power, and now they had to show they could use it wisely. As Maria gave the order to activate the final sequence, the ship's systems hummed louder, the energy core glowing brighter. The force of the power was overwhelming, and the Starship's defensive shield began to form around Earth, enveloping the planet in a protective barrier unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The core roared as it pumped its last reserves of energy into the shield. The ship's energy systems strained against the immense load, threatening to collapse under the pressure. It was a test of willpower and ingenuity. Could humanity truly control the power they had been given? Then, with a final, deafening pulse, the shield was fully activated, and the Starship's core began to destabilize. The ship shuddered violently, its outer hull glowing with the sheer intensity of the energy. Maria held her breath as the countdown to the ship's final moments began. The team's work wasn't done yet. If they didn't stabilize the core now, Earth would be unprotected once the shield was in place. But they had done it. The shield held, and the Starship's final moments played out as a bittersweet testament to humanity's resilience. The Starship's power, though exhausted, had done what it was meant to do. It had safeguarded Earth, bought humanity time, and proved that they had the strength to defend themselves. As the ship's systems flickered out and the shield remained intact, Maria allowed herself a moment of relief. The fight was far from over, but humanity had taken its first steps into the galactic arena. They had proven their worth, and now they had a weapon, a legacy left behind by the aliens that would shape the future of the galaxy. The final test had been passed, but the true journey was just beginning. Earth had survived, and humanity's place in the universe was secured, for now. But with the Starship gone, the question still remained. Who had left it behind? What had the aliens hoped for? And what would happen when the next galactic threat came? One thing was certain. Humanity was no longer just a species struggling for survival. They had become a force to be reckoned with, the ultimate weapon. As the Starship's final systems powered down and its core cooled to a dull hum, Maria stood silent for a moment, staring at the empty control panel. The overwhelming silence in the command center was almost deafening. The ship that had saved Earth, the ship that had been humanity's ultimate weapon, was no more. The battle had been won, but the true consequences of their victory were only now beginning to sink in. Outside, the protective shield still encased the Earth in a shimmering, invisible barrier. The alien fleet was gone, repelled by the ship's final defense. The planet was safe, for now, but the cost had been high. The Starship, once an alien mystery, was now nothing but a shattered relic, a symbol of humanity's strength and its fragile survival. Maria took a deep breath and turned to her team. They had done it. They had survived. But the Starship's demise left them with even more questions than answers. Is it over? Dan, one of the engineers, asked, his voice weary but filled with relief. We've won, right? Earth is safe. Maria nodded, though she knew the truth. For now, but this isn't just about surviving one attack. The universe is a vast, dangerous place. This battle may have ended, but the war is far from over. We've seen the power of the Starship. We've seen how vulnerable we were. The reality was sobering. Earth had narrowly escaped destruction, but they now knew the galaxy wasn't as peaceful as they had once thought. Other alien races would take note of what had happened. They would realize that humanity wasn't a primitive species anymore, and they might see Earth as either an ally or a threat. The Starship had given them a glimpse into a much larger conflict, a conflict that would continue long after the dust from the battle had settled. As the shield surrounding Earth slowly began to dissipate, leaving only the remnants of its immense power, Maria made a decision. We can't let this power die with the Starship. We need to learn from it, study it, and figure out how to rebuild. We need to prepare for what's to come. The alien technology within the Starship had been the ultimate weapon, and humanity had unlocked it. But now, they had to learn how to use it, not just to defend themselves, but to forge a future in the galaxy. Humanity had been given a weapon unlike anything else, and that power could either lead them to greatness or destroy them if they misused it. In the days that followed, Earth's leaders, scientists, and military forces began to sift through the wreckage of the Starship. What they found was extraordinary, a treasure trove of alien knowledge, far more advanced than anything they had ever imagined. They learned how to harness the energy sources that powered the ship, how to adapt the technology into their own systems, and most importantly, they discovered the Starship's true purpose. The ship had not just been a weapon. It had been a key, a link to an intergalactic network of alliances and conflicts. The aliens who had left the Starship behind had been watching humanity closely, perhaps even guiding them in some way. But they hadn't just given Earth a weapon. They had given humanity a chance to prove itself. The Starship was a test, a trial to see if humans could rise to the challenge of becoming a galactic power. And Earth had passed. The revelations were staggering. They weren't alone in the universe, not by a long shot. There were other civilizations out there, some peaceful, others hostile. And the Starship's destruction had sent a signal across the galaxy. Earth had survived the test. Now it was time to see how the rest of the galaxy would respond. The final moments of the battle had marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. With the Starship's legacy in their hands, they had the knowledge and the tools to build a future among the stars. But with this new power came responsibility. The decisions they made now would shape the course of their history. The mistakes of the past could not be repeated, and humanity's survival would depend on how they wielded the knowledge they had gained. As Maria stood on the steps of the command center, gazing out at the stars, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The universe was vast, and humanity had only just begun to scratch the surface of what lay beyond. The war had been won, but the real challenge had only just begun. The ultimate weapon was no longer just a ship. It was the will and resolve of humanity itself. The power to survive, to thrive, and to shape their own destiny in the vast expanse of space was now in their hands. They were no longer mere bystanders in the universe. They had a place, a seat at the table. The future of Earth had been secured. But now, it was time to see where humanity would go next. The galaxy was waiting, and humanity was ready to meet it.